Hello, welcome to the Maythorn Monthly, and I'm in my Wallasey HMO at the moment, the shared house of multiple occupancy. We're doing a lot of maintenance at the moment here with the drainage and plumbing, so Bob, my general handyman, is probably up that ladder behind me or somewhere, but he's not here at the moment. So it gives me a chance to tell you that this is the monthly compendium, or whatever you like to call it, of the videos that we've been making during August. Now, 4 of them were train trips using a rail rover and using the Merseyrail system, which I get to travel on free in the Merseyside area. But the first of those that we're going to go to now is kind of the leftover from July, because that's when we were in Bulgaria. Before we left, I had some footage from Varna. We stayed there the last few days of our visit, and I didn't get a chance to show it you last month. So let's start off with that. We said goodbye to Orish with one last look at the stork's nest in the centre of the village, and we headed out onto the open roads towards Varna. This is an OMV service station. In my opinion, they're one of the best in the country, and we normally come through here late at night, so I've always seen these places deserted. I was quite amazed to see just how busy they get during the day. There's so much beach frontage at Varna, it's difficult to know which one to choose on any particular day, but the main thing is, with all this heat we've been having here, that we find some shade, so a bar which is undercover. In Varna this time we stay in one of 3 rooms advertised as the glass rooms, and you'll see why in a minute. I'm going to stick to the interesting features, which is mainly the bathroom. Very nicely done out, the bathroom, and I love the mirror for me to shave in because it had a touch button in the middle of the mirror which gave me light. And now why it's called the glass room. The glass room actually describes the material, the frosted glass, that the ensuite bathroom is made of, and I've sent Ruth in, she went to take some photographs of the mirror too, to show you just how well you can see through this. In one of our stays just before COVID began, we stayed in an apartment which had a view across this swimming pool and out to sea. From the room we couldn't actually tell what we were looking at. You had to go down to road level to see that it is an outdoor swimming pool. We'd gone back to this area because we really liked it the first time, and we ended up having some food in one of the bars on the beach. And as I've said before, the beach is right next to a huge piece of parkland where you can go and cycle, you can walk, you can skateboard, or you can take one of the road trains that takes you to different parts of the park. A few months ago I showed you that there was a dolphinarium in the park area. There's also an aquarium, although it's quite small. There's one room which has got some tanks in, and we had a quick look around those. And there's another room which has just got some static exhibits. It's not very expensive to get in, but there isn't really much of it. In another part of the park, right by the sea, there's a little stage and some seating, and we quickly gathered that this might well be used by school parties who come here on field trips. We came across this party of school children as we walked a little further along the seafront, and I'm guessing that they'd already been to the little stage area for the opening talk.
You might actually be wrong about these being school children, because we found out while we were in Orish that the school there broke up in June. In fact, I think we were there on the day that they were all saying goodbye to each other. They have an extremely long summer holiday and don't go back till September, just like our kids. So maybe these are summer activities that we're looking at, run by a different organisation altogether. They hire electric cars for the same price as diesel cars. Bit of a catch there though. You'll see that there are these charging points around Varna, but as soon as you go outside, sorry, it's like running out of fuel halfway to Spishtov. We couldn't really entertain an electric vehicle for that trip. There is a train service though from Varna to Spishtov, so let's go and have a look at the station. It looks a very grand building from the front, and we've seen the timetables. Every few hours you can get a train down to Levski and change on to the local train to Spishtov. We had our lunch in a bar just by the station, and it was the Golden Sheep microbrewery. I think I've got that right. The food was very good, and of course so was the beer. The toilets were interesting. I don't normally take my camera into the toilets, but the urinals were unique. And don't forget to wash your hands. We generally eat quite late in the evening, and it's usually dark by then, even in the summer. I think we had Italian this particular night in the restaurant with all the lights whirling around, and then we walked back through the town and past all the other places just to get a bit of the atmosphere. The following morning we took the bus to the airport, making a point of getting there 3 hours early. That's what they tell you to do, but you don't get let through security till 2 hours before your flight. So we spent some time in the outside cafe having some lunch. I'm on my phone, excuse me. Yeah, never disturb a man when he's on his phone. Final thing I want to do is show you the bus. The timetable on the bus stop says they're every half hour to the airport. They go from Golden Sands up the coast into the airport, and they certainly are more frequent than every half hour. We were sitting in the cafe watching them come in, and I would say at least every 10 minutes, probably a bit more than that. You can't leave that car there, mate, you're in the way of the bus. Anyway, that was it, our last 24 hours in Varna before we headed home, and hopefully we can be back there sometime after the summer. Goodbye, Bulgaria, we'll miss you. This is the map for the Coasts and Peaks Rail Rover, which we've picked 4 places to do 4 journeys during August. I'm sure you've seen a rail route map before. They're all straight lines more or less, and the places are not exactly where they are geographically, so let's replace those onto a geographical map and see exactly where we're going to be going. Along the bottom of the screen is the rail map for the bit of track between Stoke-on-Trent and Derby, and we're going to get off at Tutbury and Hatton. According to the sign, this is Fisley Place Meadow. I've got off the train at Hatton and Tutbury, stationed just outside Derby. And beautiful countryside around here, and a friend of mine lives here as well, and it's Bob. And Bob has just donated a camera and a little tripod. So here we are, using it and having a look around this area. You may have noticed behind me a Nestle factory. That sort of dominates the area a bit, but rumour has it may not be there for too much longer. Anyway, our rail journeys continue. So after that quick visit, I take a train back up to Chester, where we change for the North Wales coast route along to Colwyn Bay. Colwyn Bay station is just in the distance at the bottom of the street, and we've walked up to the top to have a rather late lunch at this cafe. It's owned by a Turkish man who doesn't forget about his homeland. There's a huge picture on the wall to remind him. The cafe restaurant is opposite this church, which if you've visited Colwyn Bay you're probably quite familiar with. It's one of a number of old stone buildings in the area, and some of the others are churches too. In another road going down towards the station there are some small shops, including cafes along here, and right at the bottom on the right there's the Bayview Shopping Centre, which is right on top of the A55. And this is a coast where the main expressway to North Wales and the railway lines run side by side along the seafront. The Colwyn Bay Promenade and Beach has undergone a lot of work recently, and to see what it used to look like, these paintings on the walls around the place will give you a better idea. There used to be a pretty decent pier, and now there's just a small platform sticking out across the beach, and all the beach has been renovated and given new sand. This used to be quite a rocky beach, but it's now been covered with new golden sand, and further along at Old Colwyn they're still working on the sea defences. At the moment these are best seen from the train.
From the sea to the sky, from your wings to my heart, in the days passing by.
If you go along the promenade in a westerly direction from Colwyn Bay, you come to Rhos-on-Sea, and this has pretty much all been renovated now, and the seafront's been taken care of, and now you can pay up to £400,000 or more for an apartment looking out to the Irish Sea. For those of you who are into energies, the Irish Sea has plenty of those, and then you can live in between there and the Welsh mountains behind. Also a great energy coming from them. We'll be taking a train on into Llandudno. Not this one, I don't think. It doesn't look like it's been anywhere for a while. All trains go along as far as Llandudno Junction, but we need to get into Llandudno itself, and this is where the two train lines split, with one going down to Holyhead for the Irish ferries, and the other one coming round through Ganwy into Llandudno itself.
The next station will be our final stop. We are now approaching Llandudno, which is our final stop. When leaving us here, please make sure you have all your luggage and belongings with you. Thank you for travelling with Transport for Wales.
This is Llandudno Pier, and I'm here to introduce you to this month's videos, which is all about train journeys. We're going to make 4 journeys by regional trains this month, and they're going to be on a rover ticket that costs us just over £15 a day with a rail card. And also, because we live in the Merseyside area, we're going to take local train trips that we can do to various places like Chester and Southport, and they won't cost us a penny because we have a concessionary pass that allows us on buses and trains all over Merseyside. So we're all about train trips this month, and we're starting here in Llandudno.
We got into Llandudno rather late in the afternoon, and this is actually the fault mainly of Transport for Wales, but more of that next time. So we just had time to go into the Palladium, which was a theatre and is now a Wetherspoons, and a great place to have our evening meal. We will be returning to Llandudno next week because there's more here to see. Each week at the end of this feature I will be taking one of our local trains on Merseyrail because from where I live we can travel on these for free. The Wirral lines are still running the old trains from the 1970s, but we're now starting to see signs of the new trains that are just being introduced. Anyway, we're going to the Dips. It's a large public space down below the railway track, and we're going to spend the rest of our time here at the fair. Join us again next week when I'll be getting out our rail rovers again and visiting more places in the North West and North Wales.
Find me. I don't want anyone to hear me. I'm screwed up and I just wanna be.
Now that wasn't a one-off at New Brighton, that was a few weeks ago now that happened, and today when I was driving here to do some work on this house I noticed it was all on again down there on the Dips in New Brighton, so it's a regular occurrence. And in between the last time we went and today the place cleared out and then a circus arrived, and there's been a whole week of circus events going on down there. So there's always something going on at New Brighton in the summer, which is a great thing. Let's move on to our next train trip. Now, where shall we go next? So I've come down to the Chester bus interchange for a cup of coffee for two reasons. One is the coffee's better here at the coffee shop that's on the bus station, and secondly, although there is a chain coffee shop on the railway station, it's on the 1st of August it was the 175th birthday of Chester railway station, and they're giving it a birthday present and ripping it apart, so there's lots of noise down there, and I wouldn't have been able to be heard with all the pneumatic drills and grinders and all that sort of thing. But I did take some pictures down there, and I wanted to say something, as I hinted at last week, about Transport for Wales, because we were doing these trips down the North Wales coast, and Transport for Wales and what's the other company that replaced Virgin called? Gone out of my head now. Avanti West Coast. They share the route down to Holyhead, where you get the ferry over to Ireland. And we tried to get on the next train going down the coast, and it was Transport for Wales. It was 2 carriages, and it was packed to the seams. People were standing, and we couldn't get on. That was ridiculous, and we came across that time and time again with Transport for Wales. They seemed to only put 2 coaches on. In the end, we got on the next train, which was the Avanti lot, and they put 10 coaches on, and it was still pretty full. So 2 coaches is never ever going to be enough. If you look around Chester Station, you will see loads of spare 2-car trains hanging around. As you come in on Merseyrail, you see them in the depot, and as you're standing on the station platforms, you can see loads of them in the sidings. But what's wrong with the people? Why aren't they putting more coaches on? They do connect together, and I've got a picture of how 2 of the 2-car trains go together. They even have a corridor that goes through, so it doesn't seem like 2 separate trains. So there's my rant over. Now let's get down the coast and see some scenery.
The first place we're going to visit today is Victoria Station, and no, it's not in London, it's in Llandudno, and it's the bottom station of the Great Orme tramway. And as this train comes down from the summit, it's helping to pull another one back up to the summit, and they pass halfway. This can't just rely on gravity, it has to have some power assistance, and the station for that is halfway up. There are a few unique features to this tramway. One is its length. It's a mile long, about 1,500 metres from here to the summit. And the other one is that it shares the roadway with motor traffic, with cars. Once you get off the tram here at the bottom, you have a choice of places to eat and drink. On one side of the tram line there is a fish and chip shop that people come from miles around to try. And on the other side there's a pub, which you may have noticed. Unusually for a seaside resort, the seagulls don't seem to bother you much in this particular part of Llandudno, perhaps because they've found their own source of food elsewhere. We came back to Llandudno for a second day, 1 because we didn't have long the first day we came here, and 2 because one of our favourite Indian restaurants is here, which is where we had our evening meal. A quick tour of the town shows you that the coffee culture is here, and also, amazingly enough, fortes still exists. I remember them from my childhood, but here and in Ross-on-Sea I've seen branches of fortes. You'll also find that Llandudno has some other traditional features, especially those for the children.
I will go and hide down there. When Mr. Punch comes up, will you call me, boys and girls? I will go and hide down there. I'll go and hide down there.
And we'll take ourselves off a little further down the coast, but not quite as far as Anglesey.
We are on a rail trip down the North Wales coast, and this is Bangor, which is on the Menai Straits opposite Anglesey, and it's got a town centre, a big shopping centre. We've been to one of the regular coffee joints. There's a big Debenhams here, but of course that's now dead and gone. But the main interest here, particularly historically, is in the buildings, and there's one up on the hill back there. This is a university city. I think I'm right in saying it's a city because it has a cathedral, and it's just been an interesting place to come and visit. And we had a bit of quiet time as well down by the Menai Straits, where it's got an old Victorian pier which is worth a look.
The Wetherspoons in Bangor is called the Black Bull, and this is the entrance from the High Street. But we entered from the back, where there are two-step terraces with plenty of room to sit out and eat and drink, until somebody smokes you out. And on this particular day, there were quite a lot of people sitting outside, and somebody next door started a bonfire. So everybody suddenly ran in. The doors had been opened, so there was a smell of smoke inside as well. And soon enough, the fire brigade turned up to try and get the man to put his bonfire out. Most of our rail journeys have involved changing at Chester to get to our final destination. So this week our Merseyrail trip is to Chester, one of the lines out of Liverpool. And if you go down City Road out of the station and then cross over and continue walking towards the river, you'll probably come out at the Boathouse pub and you'll be able to walk along the riverfront and see all the activity along there. And as you can see, it's boating, it's eating and drinking. Snugbury's Ice Cream have taken over one of the cafes down there, and the bandstand is usually busy at the weekends. So if you're into some live music, why not go along there then? Let's see who we've got here today. Well, I recognise these ladies. They're the Handbag of Harmonies. I used to do IT support for one of these, and I've seen them a couple of times over the years. They have some pretty good arrangements of well-known songs. We went off to get some coffee, and when we came back, Tennessee Waltz were on. That's a duo of Jimmy Ray and Sarah Lou, and guests very often. I decided to zoom down and get close up to the duo with my camera, much to the surprise of Jimmy, who didn't see me coming.
This is lovely weather that's coming in now.
And make sure I put it in the right way as well, otherwise it doesn't sound too good.
Jimmy and Sarah recently got married and moved out into Cheshire, but it's good to see them back here in Chester performing to their local friends once again.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And so we'll let Tennessee Waltz play us out on our visit to the River Dee Riverside in Chester.
The girl from Wisconsin with pretty brown eyes. Her name was Elisa, and I can't disguise how I fell for her smile when she welcomed us here to the beautiful island they call Derbyshire. And I'll carry the memory of the friends that we made and our songs of goodbye. I'll carry the memory of the girl from Wisconsin with the pretty brown eyes. She was the girl from Wisconsin, so far from home. How did she get here? Did she travel alone? And will she remember when we have all gone? Will the music we made here still play on and on? And I'll carry the memory of the friends that we made and our songs of goodbye. I'll carry the memory of the girl from Wisconsin with the pretty brown eyes. of the girl from Wisconsin with a pretty brown eye. Yes, I'll carry the memory of the friends that we made and our songs of goodbye. I'll carry the memory of the girl from Wisconsin with a pretty brown eye.
Today we're going to travel to Derbyshire's Peak District, and this is the only time we don't go via Chester because it's quicker to go via Liverpool, Lime Street and Manchester. Well, that's where the train line tells us to go to, but if you draw a straight line between Liverpool and the Peak District, it looks better to me to go via Stockport.
On today's train trip we've come to Derbyshire, and the way we did that was to go to Liverpool Lime Street, take an East Midlands train, only they've kind of changed their name a bit since I last travelled on one. Have a pretty awful respray for the livery, and luckily the back two coaches of our train were in the original colours, which I thought were great. So we took the train which was heading for Nottingham, and we took it as far as Stockport, where we changed onto a train for Buxton, one of those little local northern trains that stops every 2 or 3 minutes. Anyway, we eventually got into Buxton. The weather today we were promised was showers, but we have had some good sunny weather, so that's okay. Now experiencing the showers, as you may be able to tell. So the first thing we did, because it was raining when we arrived at Buxton, was we went and had some lunch. And just by the station there's a fantastic restaurant called Simply Thai. We love Thai food, and it was really nice inside. The food was excellent, really tasty. After we'd done that, we came out to look at the Pavilion Gardens, which is where I am now, and I'm standing in the bandstand because it is pouring with rain, and I was beginning to think we can't really take advantage of the Pavilion Gardens if this is going to be the weather from now on. The ducks of course are loving it. They do say nice weather for ducks, but we also found that some of the Pavilion Gardens are actually in the pavilion. That was handy, wasn't it? So we can go inside and still be in the garden.
Drive me crazy, I don't mind. I can take it, I like the ride. Make me mad, you know I love it. I feel uneven, I can't get enough. I need a bad boy, I want a bad boy. I'm feeling wild, crazy, smile, I'm not gonna let up. I need a bad boy, I want a bad boy. I'm feeling wild, crazy, smile, I'm not gonna let up. Drive me crazy, I don't mind. I can take it, I like the ride. Make me mad, you know I love it. I feel uneven, I can't get enough.
The people in the tourist office opposite the Crescent here were telling us the history of the place, and there's rather a lot of that to tell, so you can look that up for yourselves. What I was interested in was the shopping mall alongside, and you'll see if you look closely it says Buxton Baths over the top. So the shopping mall was built on the site of the old Buxton Baths.
I want a bad boy. I'm feeling wild, crazy, smile, I'm not gonna let up.
So the rain's gone away, we got some blue sky, we've also got a lot of wind now, and we're up in the market square in Buxton, and this is where all the buses stop. We've decided to get a bus to Glossop.
We visited Glossop in 2020 when we were released from the COVID lockdowns, so we'll just have a quick recap of the Manor Park area in the town centre before we head down to the railway station to get a train back towards Manchester. The train we got to Buxton earlier was an old diesel rail car, but they think that Glossop deserves better. The line has been electrified to here, and the trains are more modern, although not new, and they're quite long. We're taking our Merseyrail trip up what used to be called the Lancashire coast. It's in Merseyside now, and we're going to Southport. If you want to spend a day on the beach, you need to stop short of Southport at somewhere like Formby, Freshfield or Ainsdale, because at Southport itself the sea is such a long way out you only see it a couple of times a year. Best place to go is here, Marine Lake. There's lots of attractions around here, and we'll show you just a few of them, including the bars and the entertainment, and of course all the boating activities on the lake itself. Apart from the Merseyrail trains, there are two other types of train you can see here. There's a miniature railway which takes you from one side of the lake to the other, and there's also road trains, another way to get round. Seems to be plenty of those, as you can see. For Ruth and I, a day in Southport wouldn't be complete without a fish and chip lunch, so we're going to go off and look for one of those and leave you with the entertainment that's right down here by the lake. So we arrived in Shrewsbury by train, and we stepped outside the station and it was absolutely throwing it down with rain. It had only started raining in the last few minutes of our journey down from Chester, so we just struck unlucky today. We've walked down a few hundred yards to the riverfront. The River Severn winds its way through here, and we found a Wetherspoons, which is one of our normal venues for getting food at a reasonable price. The Shrewsbury Hotel behind us
is a Wetherspoons, and a very nice one indeed. And let's hope this rain will go off and we'll be able to show you a bit more of Shrewsbury before we go home again.
There was a little drizzle as we left the railway station, and we walked around the corner and saw the bus station, and just a little further along the road we came across Wetherspoons, and of course, as I said, we had our lunch there. You'll see from these pictures that I turned my back on the beer, but literally in this case because it was right behind me. The rain keeps going on and off, but we're walking along the riverfront anyway. We see a tree that's fallen in the river, and we see a couple of items of interest a little bit further along. Charles Darwin was born in the Mount House in Shrewsbury, and his name is banded around a few places in the area. The Sentinel steam wagon was made in Shrewsbury and sold worldwide, and there's a steam wagon right here on site by the river. Shrewsbury is sometimes called by the locals Shrewsbury. I'm not sure why, that we need to rename that book The Taming of the Shrow. Whatever you're going to call it, it's traditionally been known as the Town of Flowers, and you'll see that mentioned on a few of the major roads in the area. Another unique feature is St Chad's Church, defined by its unique circular nave, and St Mary's Church has elaborate stained glass windows.
Well, I don't want to speak too soon, but the rain seems to have gone off. We've had the odd little drop of drizzle, and we're standing in front of the quarry, as it's called, Quarry Park. Could be because it used to be an actual quarry, but there's a beautiful area inside there called the Dingle, and it's just got lots of flower beds. It's got little lakes and fountains. It's even got a little head of Percy Thrower, who those of you who have my sort of age may remember used to be the TV gardener. So a look round the gardens before it starts raining again, and we have a backstop that we can use if it does rain, because in the opposite direction we can go into the market hall and hopefully keep dry in there, and apparently that's worth a look.
As the sign says, this is St Chad's Church, and it stands right at the top of the quarry gardens, and the Dingle is just below. The reason that Percy Thrower gets a mention is because he built his own house in 1963 at a place called Merrington, which is 6 miles northwest of Shrewsbury. Percy is quoted as saying it gave him a garden of about 1.5 acres to play with, which was something he'd never had before. Well, the Dingle certainly shows off Shrewsbury as the town of flowers. Now let's go and look for this market hall, and we need to go straight up this alley here, and on the way down here we see a Stop Me and Buy One ice cream bike. Anyway, the market, it's on 2 levels as far as the shopping is concerned, but you can go up a further level and get a viewpoint across the town, which of course I had to do. While we're showing you the pictures of the stalls on the ground floor, if you look in the background around the edges, you'll see a kind of mezzanine level which has got more shops upstairs. Back out of the market hall, and nearly opposite we notice the Loopy Shrew. I shouldn't think that's of any historic interest, but Rowley's house and mansion is. Rowley's house was built by Roger Rowley, a wool merchant from the 1500s, and his son built the mansion in 1618, and it's believed to be the earliest brick building in Shrewsbury. There seem to be quite a few quirky and historic buildings in Shrewsbury, and if you're thinking of coming here, make sure you walk around the streets on foot and have a good look. And so we get the train down to our final destination for today. It's Telford Central, and at the station we have to go up in the lift, don't fancy all those stairs, onto the footbridge level, because the whole town centre is built in a very compact and modern arrangement across the other side of the railway. By coming up to this level, you can forget about all the road systems down below and go straight into a rather large shopping centre. We're not going in there today. We're going to carry on into the leisure areas around the back. Plenty of places to stay, plenty of places to eat. We had our dinner there before we took the train back home, and there are other leisure facilities, and this is obviously designed for the locals, the people who live here. There's a park which is part of the town centre. It's all been purpose built. I think it almost like one of those 15-minute cities that the government are trying to dream up. There's a bowling alley and a cinema and lots of coffee shops, and there's lots of playgrounds for the kids, huge areas of parkland. There was a fair on site. Yeah, you name it, it was there, but we didn't have much time, so we've made a resolution to go back there soon. When we've been travelling across the country down south to Portsmouth and across to the east coast and Lowestoft and places like that, we tend to have left the area on the M54. So we're quite familiar with the services at Telford, and we're also fully aware that there's a lot of electric charging here, and it's not enough. And there's a row of half a dozen special Tesla charging points, and on this day we were there, they were all full as well, and we saw another Tesla come into the car park, saw that he couldn't get a charge here, turned around and went out again. So I see a day when more people have electric cars and they won't be able to charge them anywhere. So travelling by train seems to me a great idea just now. Well, let's head for Merseyrail for our final segment this week. This onboard information screen shows that we have just left Liverpool Central, the next station is Moorfields, and the final destination is Ormskirk. There are a number of other displays around the train of different types, and everybody gets a charging point at their seat. There are special areas for wheelchairs and prams, and there are also bike racks that allow 2 bikes to be slotted in. As you can see, this is just one long open train, and the display systems around the place will tell you the information you need to know. This screen is now showing that we've left Old Roan and we'll be getting into Maghull at 11:07. It's a real-time display.
Well, so far on Merseyrail we've been to destinations at the end of the line like Chester, Southport and New Brighton, because they're all resorts and there's plenty to do there, plenty for us to see. The other lines are not quite as interesting, and today I'm on the Ormskirk line. Ormskirk is a nice little market town which I did look at earlier in the year, so I can show you what that's like. But I've stopped off at Maghull. Now Maghull is an interesting place because there's a Frank Hornby, the railway guy, museum here in the Maghull Library. So I got off the new train here and have a 10-minute walk into town. Now the station here is worth a look before we do that, and it's looked after by volunteers, and it's one of the most attractive stations I've seen in a long time. They've really done a good job on it. And if you want to go into the town centre from here, there's a little shuttle bus that takes a few minutes. It's called the Comfy Bus, and it's a hybrid bus. I decided to walk. It's only a 10-minute walk, and there's some interesting things to see on the way, including crossing the canal. When you get into the town centre, or by the time I got into the town centre, I felt like I needed a coffee. So just opposite the library, there's a little coffee shop called Betty's. So I stopped at Betty's and then went over to Frank's.
Frank Hornby's life is actually portrayed on the poster on the railway station, but the complete timeline is also inside the museum. There's some comfy chairs up here where you can take a look at the extra large size Meccano, and then of course look at the Hornby trains. They're the main event. Dinky toys, and strangely enough, Baco are here too. I was building houses with Baco when I was about 5 or 6 years old, but I can't find any of my friends who actually had a set of this. Most people of my age had a train set when they were younger, and some of us have still got bits of it. I must get mine out one day. But for now, we're going to go on the brand new Merseyrail trains as they've finally got into service, and continue our journey up towards Ormskirk. The Court Leet is the Wetherspoons I picked for my lunch today here in Ormskirk, but before I went upstairs I decided to follow the music I could hear, and it led to a little community cafe just down this alley. If you watch regularly, you'll know this isn't the first time I've tried to eat outside of Wetherspoons on the upstairs terrace overlooking the area. Well, this time I managed to get through my meal and drink without somebody starting a bonfire and smoking me out. And in true social media style, I have to tell you what I had for lunch. Back out in the town centre, I'm heading a few hundred yards up the road to see what happened to the development of the new bus station that I last saw in February. Turns out it opened in March, it's been operational since, and I've just not come back to have a look. It's a pretty large bus station area with 5 bus stops spread out in a kind of U-shape, and it all comes off a new mini roundabout from the main road. They've created a new pathway up from the railway station, which means you don't have to cross over a load of roads and bridges and things just to get to a bus. The bus station is well planned with wide pavement areas, proper cycle lanes, and even a place to stash your bike if you're going on the bus. The display boards show both the train and the bus times, and it seems that there's rather a lot of buses going towards Southport, so my arm was twisted and I went to look for one. You can see 2 buses just coming round towards me now. The first one was going to Wigan, so it just passed me by, and the second one stopped halfway round the U-shape and I had to go chasing after it, but it was going to Southport and it left straight away. The bus was purely a means of getting from the far end of the Ormskirk line to the far end of the Southport line. There is obviously no crossrail system here. Have a look at the station platforms. They're extremely long and extremely wide. No apparent reason for this, but I assume there must have been long trains here at some point in history.
I've stopped off the train at Crosby Hall Road, which is like halfway into Liverpool from Southport, and this is where the Gormley statues are on the beach. They're spread out over a really large area, and I just happened to find one of the ones near into the shore, and it's rather short, like it said, its legs chopped off, so I'm kind of towering over this one. The rest are all fairly full size. Crosby is the place that I grew up and went to school, so this area has a lot of memories for me. None of them involved the Gormley statues, they weren't here then, but certainly came to this beach a lot with our youth club, and we had barbecues down here and all sorts. That probably wouldn't be allowed these days, as most things aren't. Anything that's fun is definitely out. Still managed to enjoy myself travelling backwards and forwards by train, and so pleased that I can use Merseyrail to make these trips all for free because of my concessionary pass. The line that comes from Southport into Liverpool carries on to Hunt's Cross, and there are a number of places on this line, both this side of Liverpool and the other side, which are worth an explore. So have a feeling that this 4-week series isn't going to end here, and that we're going to carry on doing a few other trips, exploring the places not at the far end of the line, the destination, but just along the way.
Here's a quick PS about the line between Southport and Hunt's Cross. This will be the last line to get the new Class 777 trains, apparently because platform work still needs doing at Southport. And yet, these trains you're seeing here, they're all parked in the sidings at Southport, all ready to go. They're going to have a long wait, I think. Well, that's the end of this hour-long Maythorn Monthly. We're going to leave you in Southport with a bit of busking. Join us again next month, and hopefully now we'll get these programmes to be a bit shorter. See you in September.
Again.